Hello, back again on the Top Recap channel. This time I will tell a movie's entitled Avengement. Let's get straight into the storyline. The movie begins with several police cars escorting a prisoner named Kane Barges to the hospital to visit his sick mother. He is escorted by a team of high-security police. When he arrives at the hospital, the doctor tells him that Kane's mother has just died. If Kane had arrived a little earlier, he might still have time to say goodbye to his mother. After that, Kane asked permission to see his mother's body one last time. When he finished gazing at his mother's face, Kane didn't show anything on his face despite his deep sadness. He seemed to have learned to suppress his emotions during his imprisonment. While in the elevator, Kane unexpectedly started beating up his guards. After paralyzing them, Kane managed to escape. Moments later, Kane was seen trying to enter a private bar. However, he was stopped by the bouncers. With ease, Kane knocked them down and quickly entered the bar. During a brief conversation with a bartender named Bez, Kane said that he was a gang member and asked for a glass of beer. While drinking his beer, Kane listened to a conversation between people sitting behind him. They were gang members who had recently curtailed their activities because one of their members, Rook, had been murdered. One of the gang members, Toon, claimed to have witnessed Rook's murder and began to recount the events. Toon recounted that while they were selling drugs at their usual dealing spot, they suddenly saw someone standing near them and staring intently into the darkness of the night. While Toon was busy with his customers, Rook approached the man fearlessly, trying to figure out his intentions. When the person gave no answer, Rook became angry and tried to punch him in the face. However, Rook was suddenly attacked with an axe that caused his hand to be cut off. Toon emphasized that after seeing the incident, he chased the perpetrator until he made him run away in fear.
"No, just gone, vanished."
When Toon said this, Kane laughed and started mocking Toon. He said Toon was not tough enough to make someone run away. Kane also accused that it was actually Toon who ran away like a coward after Rook was killed. Toon, who heard the accusation, immediately became angry and threatened Kane. All the gang members were getting ready for a fist fight. However, when Kane said he was actually the one who had killed Rook, they all backed off in fear. Bez yelled at Kane and told him to leave the bar. Meanwhile, the bouncers who had just woken up came in and tried to beat Kane. However, within seconds, Kane managed to overpower them. He even fired his shotgun as a warning, showing how dangerous he was. Then, Kane took all the gang members hostage and demanded the location of their boss, a ruthless loan shark and corrupt businessman named Lincoln Barges. It was known that Lincoln would do anything to get money illegally. As it turns out, Lincoln is Kane's older brother. Not long after, a man came out of his room. The man was Heidi, Lincoln's most trusted assistant, who still recognized Kane. Heidi immediately introduced Kane to the other gang members as the boss's brother, who had made a mistake and ended up in prison. Feeling confident about being among the gang, Heidi mocked the scars on Kane's face, implying that they resulted from his time in prison. Shortly after, one of the bouncers attacked Kane. As the bouncer was in great pain, he started screaming in fear. Kane then kicked him in the face, knocking him unconscious. After all the violence Heidi witnessed, he began to doubt that Kane was Rook's killer, as Toon had alleged. To prove this, Kane took out a piece of Rook's hand from inside a plastic bag, which was then opened by Toon.
Jesus fucking Christ!
Now, everyone knew that Kane was a cold-blooded, ruthless killer with a gun in his hand. They had no choice but to obey his orders. After cornering Heidi and his members, King blamed Heidi and Lincoln for imprisoning him. He then ordered Heidi to contact Lincoln and told him to come to the bar immediately.
"Yeah, it's me. Need you to come down to the jockey."
After Heidi contacted Lincoln, Kane began to tell the story of his past in front of everyone, not minding if they knew how he became what he is now. A few years ago, when Kane was still an ordinary boxer struggling, he went to Lincoln, his brother, and asked for money to start a business. Lincoln was at the time playing cards with his gang, Rook, and his accountant, Stokes. The three of them had apparently lost a bet to Kane because he could not be beaten in a boxing match. Before Lincoln could respond to Kane's request, Rook scolded Kane for his ridiculous offer and insulted him. Agreeing with Rook's words, Lincoln apparently preferred not to lend his money because Kane's history was too bad. However, before Kane left, Lincoln stopped him and said he could lend him money if Kane did a job in return. Without any other choice, Kane immediately accepted the job without knowing the task.
So take it or leave it.
Well, what's the job?
Sometime after that, Kane was seen going to Heidi's office and receiving the information needed. There, Heidi told Kane that all he had to do was steal a plastic bag from a poor woman and return it to Heidi's office. Without realizing the consequences, Kane committed the theft. Kane, who felt sorry for the woman, immediately fell silent and was arrested by two policemen who happened to be guarding the scene. A few days later, Kane was seen being interrogated by an elite detective named O'Hara. There, O'Hara explained to Kane that he had spent years keeping an eye on Lincoln, his brother. During the interrogation, Kane was told that Lincoln was running a dirty loan business, where the money loaned to customers was stolen before the customers could use it. Because of this, the customers became even more indebted. As O'Hara explained, this led directly to the core of the business, which was to confiscate all the customers' personal property, including their homes and vehicles. Then, O'Hara asked Kane to hand over Lincoln by informing him of his current whereabouts. However, despite knowing Lincoln's evil deeds, Kane refused O'Hara's request and stayed by his brother's side. Because Kane refused to tell Lincoln's whereabouts, O'Hara then sentenced that Kane now had his hands dirty in 3 cases, namely robbery, murder, and organized crime. Not long after, Kane was introduced to a tough interrogator named Sergeant Evans. This Evans turns out to be a corrupt cop who likes to torture suspects to get unauthorized confessions from detectives. And sure enough, it looked like Evans had badly beaten Kane.
I'm gonna hurt you, Kane.
Kane then ended up in Belmar's prison, which was the dirtiest and most violent prison and was also known as the meat grinder. With no criminal record, Kane faced many challenges in prison.
There's a reason why they call that place the meat grinder.
On his first day, he was confronted and attacked by a strong man for no reason.
Jaw seems to be healing nicely.
Because of this incident, Kane was given metal dentures, which he liked because they made him look very dangerous. It was then seen that his mother, who was still alive at the time, immediately visited Kane in prison. There, his mother told him that Lincoln blamed Kane for his imprisonment, so he would not take any action. Hearing this, Kane felt that his loyalty to Lincoln was pointless and that Lincoln had abandoned him in prison despite Lincoln being the reason he was imprisoned in the first place. Kane kept his spirits up and asked his mother to ensure Lincoln would call him.
He used to come down here and talk to me, all right? You got to tell him to come here and talk to me.
I'll tell him so.
Day after day passed with no word from Lincoln. No meetings, no phone calls, not even a letter. Kane finally realized he was alone and had to stand alone. While in prison, he was often attacked by other inmates and never even knew their motives for attacking him. However, Kane had no choice but to defend himself. He began a challenging program of physical and mental conditioning to prepare himself for the attacks to come. The next day, as usual, He got into a fight with 2 other prisoners in the prison yard. Kane, who was happy to have defeated his attackers, then received a shocking and upsetting piece of information when one of the prisoners he had brutally beaten told him that his brother, Lincoln, had set a bounty of £20,000 on his head. As it turned out, this was the reason for all the attacks that were coming at him day and night. Furious to hear this, Kane now had a reason to live, a desire for revenge against those who had brought this disaster upon him. He would not give up easily.
I'm a dirty, conniving little bastard like you, but I cannot accept that from him.
The large prize money was luring many prisoners every day. However, Kane's motives and strength also increased as the number of his opponents grew. After the various battles, Kane suffered many wounds, received several months of additional punishment, and spent several days in the isolation room. To kill Kane, the prisoners even used all available tools, including a flammable chemical known as napalm. It was the liquid that caused part of his face to burn.
I bet you didn't know.
Kane slowly turned into a bloodthirsty monster, so he couldn't recognize himself. Now, Kane thought that his only remaining goal was to survive, and in this way, he showed no mercy to anyone. Even the prison guards were overwhelmed by him, and some of them were seriously injured. King had finally been imprisoned for 3 years. One day, his mother came to visit him to deliver bad news. Kane was told that his mother was currently suffering from pancreatic cancer and would probably not be able to see Kane again. Hearing this, Kane was unable to explain to his mother what a terrible thing Lincoln had done, because at this time, Lincoln became his mother's only confidant. Some time passed, and Kane's mother's condition worsened. Detective O'Hara then visited Kane, who was hospitalized for one of his routine conflicts. During this meeting, it became very clear to Kane that Sergeant Evans was one of Lincoln's spies, working for him as an informant. Detective O'Hara then told Kane that he had fired Evans outright after knowing that Evans was working with Lincoln. O'Hara also discovered that Lincoln wanted Kane to die in prison. Therefore, O'Hara again asked Kane to reveal Lincoln's whereabouts. This time, Kane agreed to provide the information O'Hara wanted, but on one condition. He wanted to see his dying mother one last time. As shown at the movie's beginning, Kane gets a chance to escape through the hospital and successfully seizes the opportunity. Back to the present. Inside the bar, Toon and his friend insisted they must go to the restroom to urinate. However, Kane did not allow them and ordered them to urinate inside the bar. Heidi, tired of Kane's rambling, tried to be brave and told him to do whatever he wanted. Kane immediately told him to kneel down and warned him that his last words would be whatever he said after that.
Don't remember you being so trappy.
At the same time, Lincoln arrived with 3 of his men. He was surprised to see Kane inside his private bar.
You've come to me for help. I'm your brother. What's family for, after all?
Get back! Get back!
Kane, who had targeted Lincoln as his main target, became increasingly upset. He disarmed them and told them to join the rest of the gang.
Go over there with the others.
There, Kane was ready for revenge. However, before that, he demanded an explanation as to why Lincoln wanted to kill him in prison. Lincoln finally admitted that he had no choice but to do so because one of his spies had discovered that Kane was planning to rat them out. Kane, who had been tipped off by Evans, immediately declared that he was deliberately framed and arrested by the police. Thus, instead of trusting his brother, Kane trusted a corrupt police officer who no longer worked for Lincoln.
Give me my phone.
I don't think he's going to be answering that phone, mate.
Kane recently reunited with Evans at his new workplace. After a fierce fight, Kane ended up killing Evans with a hammer blow to his head. Impressed by Kane's intelligence and planning, Lincoln offered him life and a fresh start. However, Kane ignored the words and immediately shot Heidi in the head because he was too noisy.
Sentimental bullshit, and you can shove it up your fucking...
Lincoln, who could not accept the gruesome death of his assistant, faced Kane's next attack.
Seriously gonna fuck you up like you can't believe.
That is, when Kane showed the rest of his balance, Lincoln could hardly believe it. Apparently, there were only 1,500 pounds sterling left in his account. It turns out that Kane had come to the Stokes residence. When Kane arrived, Stokes tried to intimidate him with a shotgun. However, Kane took it as a joke and easily disarmed him. In exchange for his life, Stokes agreed to give Kane whatever he requested. Kane then told Stokes to donate all the money, 22 million pounds sterling from Lincoln's account, to the families affected by Lincoln's loan business. Now, Lincoln has nothing left but his own gang. Lincoln thought Kane would die tonight, as he only had 2 bullets, while his opponents numbered 10. However, Kane said that he only needed 1 bullet, and that bullet was for Lincoln.
I only need one to blow your fucking head apart.
When Lincoln realized that Bez would attack Kane from behind, he continued his empty talk. When Kane was distracted by Lincoln's words, Bez hit Kane on the head with a bottle, sparking a fierce fight.
Got on every single...
Eventually, only Bez, Lincoln, and Kane remained. With a gun pointed at Kane, Lincoln said that he didn't care whether Kane wanted to rat him out or not. Lincoln had put a bounty on Kane's head just because he had ruined his reputation among his peers. After revealing the truth, Lincoln pulled the trigger, but he was surprised to find that no bullet came out. Kane, realizing that the gun was empty, said that he was glad Lincoln hadn't fallen for his trick of taking his gun. Eventually, Lincoln was punished for his evil actions with a stab from his brother, Kane. After eliminating Lincoln, only Bez was left. However, Kane had no intention of killing a woman, and he left her behind. Moments later, we see one of Lincoln's customers surprised to see the balance in his account. This shows that Kane made up for most of his brother Lincoln's mistakes. Besides giving Kane satisfaction, it also benefited Lincoln's customers and Detective O'Hara.